12:34 TSN 690. Game Points with Matthew Ross. We're here until 1 o'clock. Eric Thomas on the board. Stefano Michello helping us out. Moe Khan also in studio, and he'll be back Thursday night for Midnight Snack, which is now less than 48 hours away. He'll be on after the Thursday night football game. Mo, what do you have in store?
One guest confirmed, Nick Lewis of the Calgary Stampeders will join us for his yearly annual October discussion about the CFL playoffs.
All right, looking forward to that. Very opinionative, very entertaining Nick Lewis.
Yeah. Funny guy.
And Jimmy G will be on the board?
Jimmy G, of course, the immortal Jimmy G will be on the board. Him and I will go head-to-head in the 5 headlines of the week.
All right, looking forward to that. And, of course, MoCon19 on Twitter.com. Is Jimmy G on Twitter yet?
No, he told me, and he's repeated this 3 times in a row in the last 3 weeks, that he will only join Twitter when the lockout ends. The
what
NHL
what does
lockout.
one thing have to do with another?
Coronation, new season, new Jimmy, new beginnings for Jimmy G.
I wonder if it'll be something like The Jimmy G or something to that effect.
I told him Jimmy G 690 would be good.
You think so?
Yeah.
Jimmy Garofalus, I don't think he'll... Garofalus, excuse me. I don't think he'll fit.
Garofalus.
I was thinking of Janine Garofalo. But
yes,
anyway,
you were.
Jimmy Garofalus, I don't think you can fit all of the letters for
no,
Twitter.
I told him you need to minimize your name to have more characters to work with.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some CFL here on the program. Of course, the Alouettes are coming off a very gutty victory, ugly victory, but a gutty victory in Toronto, and now they do control their own destiny. One of 3 final games in the win column will get them that division and a home field advantage for the playoffs. They're already advertising it in the paper. November 18th, home game. It's not official yet.
Very cheap.
But, yes, I saw that. But at the same time, you wouldn't want them to be any other way, would you? You want them to be confident and looking ahead to that. You want them to have that mindset, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But, looking back in that game against Toronto, the defense showed up, certainly. The offense had its, limitations, but also some injuries to battle. How do they look now going into these final 3 weeks?
That's a good question, Matthew. You look at it, I think first and foremost, they want to be healthy. I know a lot of the local papers were saying that the swoon has begun, considering they lost to Hamilton and Winnipeg back-to-back weeks, but they end off their 4-game streak of divisional matchups on a good note to beat Toronto in Toronto. Now they hold a tiebreaker edge over the Argos if they were tied at season's end on wins and points. Now, with them at 9-6, 3 games left in the season, it's imperative that they finish off strong. They do play Saskatchewan in Regina this weekend, which could be very cold. And then don't forget, they do play Edmonton, their last home game before the playoffs begin, then go back on the road to Winnipeg. Very tricky games on the docket. Saskatchewan's always been a house of horrors for the Alouettes of late, so you wonder how they'll play. Of course, they did win last year, but of course we've seen some big, high-scoring affairs, and Saskatchewan's played Montreal very tough the last few times, including the Grey Cups in 2009 and 2010.
And they're not healthy enough on offense to get into one of those slugfests.
I mean, it depends. It depends if S.J. Green is healthy. If he is, then I think he would go.
And he's had some good games in Saskatchewan.
He's had some strong games. The highlight grab he made on Canada Day 2 years ago. I think what it comes down to is for Anthony Calvillo to develop that chemistry or continue on with the success he's had with Jamel Richardson, first and foremost. I mean, finally for him, he's got off the schneid to get his first 100-yard game of the season. Last year, he had 12 of them. But I think for them right now is to be healthy. I think that's the key word that they will use. Repetitive, I may be with this word here, but you need Victor Anderson back in the lineup. Chris Jennings may be good for a short-term gap here, but you wonder moving ahead with 3 weeks left what the Owls will do. And, of course, for them, if they are to clinch home field throughout the playoffs, maybe by this weekend, if Toronto were to lose to Winnipeg or whatever the outcome is in the next 2 weeks, then would you consider allowing Calvillo to sit out week 18 for him to rest up for 2 weeks? Would you consider benching your other guys so you let Jamel, everyone else get healthy?
Normally, I would say 2 weeks is just too much, but a guy like Anthony Calvillo, I really don't think it's going to bother a guy like that. He's such a rhythm quarterback. He's such a creature of habit in terms of practice. He's played with these receivers for a long time, especially, of course, Richardson and S.G. Green and Bratton. So I really don't think it's an issue. I agree. I think you're absolutely right. I think it would be phenomenal to see Adrian McPherson and even the third stringer to get some time in a game if Week 18 is not.
It sealed in the books right now?
Is it a home game or an away game?
Week 18 is at Winnipeg, and by the way, 2 years ago, when they last won the Grey Cup, they lost to Toronto last game of the year. However, that was an irrelevant game because Montreal had sealed up the East Division by then.
Then I would say you don't need to play them if everything is sealed. I think if it's a home game, and we all know that they're sensitive right now in terms of attendance, I think announcing that Anthony Calvillo is not going to be in lineup, not a good move. But now that it's an away game, it's established, of course, that it's not going to be a gate situation where you're worried about attendance. Yeah, I think go ahead and do it. What do you think about that?
You could very well do that, but again, I think the mindset of Mark Trestman and the Alouettes have to be getting everyone healthy. You need the healthy bodies. Brandon London, we don't know how long he'll be out, whether or not it's a 2-week process or maybe even longer. It's a big blow to the offense. Jamel Richardson will be okay. S.J. Green should be back in the lineup. Brian Bratton back in the lineup here. But they can ill afford to lose too many more bodies along the way, like they did with Brandon Whitaker earlier in the season. And we're seeing the effects of Brandon Whitaker not being in the lineup because, again, they're not able to produce those tough yards, him catching the football out of the backfield and enable everyone else to get open because he's attracting an extra body or two on top of him. So moving ahead here for the Alouettes at 9-6, they're in a comfortable position here. If they can win this Saturday in Regina, then they're going to be in great position to definitely be able to say to themselves, all right, let's finish off strong here, but let's make sure we play with our smarts that we have and not risk ourselves getting hurt at some point during the next couple of games.
All right, so Mo, looking ahead now at these 3 games, where are you earmarking wins, and do you have predictions? Will they go 2-3? Will they go 1-3? Rather, 2-1? Will they go 1-2? 0-3, 3-0? What are you looking at?
I think 2-1 is probably the realistic goal here. I think they beat the Eskimos in Montreal next week. With the Saskatchewan and Winnipeg games both on the road, I think they split those. I just can't figure out where they would split the games. Saskatchewan, very Jekyll and Hyde in how they play football. You know, they win 2-3 in a row, then they pull a dud last week against Edmonton. So I just don't know how Saskatchewan will be. Winnipeg, I mean, it'll be the last game of the year, so you wonder how hard these players will be playing for their jobs. Of course, for Tim Burke's job for next year, if he will be retained by the team here. So right now, I think it's going to be kind of a flip a coin. Wherever it lands, that's where they'll get the win, whether it's in Regina or Winnipeg.
All right, and from a fan's perspective, Stefano, Alouettes' final 3 games. How do you feel? I mean, did Toronto's the victory in Toronto, does it give you confidence moving forward, or is it just kind of like, phew, got that done and holding my breath the final 3 games?
No, it was definitely a sense of relief, and the fact that they weren't playing Ricky Ray and that they were playing Jarius Jackson, yet another backup that they managed to play. I mean, a win's a win. I was happy with that, and as long as they get one of the next 3 wins, I feel confident going to the East Final. I don't know how confident I would feel going to the Grey Cup if they were to face BC, let's say. But in terms of just getting to the East Final, I'm sure if they get there, then they can beat any of the remaining Eastern teams that come in there. I don't see them losing at home again 2 years in a row.
By the way, I will go out on the record and say Montreal will be going to Toronto for the 100th Grey Cup. Do I think they'll win it? I don't know just yet. I don't have that confidence like I had in 2009, 2010, where I thought and firmly believed that they were the Grey Cup champions and would win those 2 years. Last year, I said the exact same thing, that kind of they may fall off the radar. But this year, I believe they have a strong team to go to the Grey Cup. Do I believe they can go over the top and win it? That's to be determined, though. But I believe that the winner will come from either Calgary or British Columbia to win the Grey Cup.
Game points here on TSN 6.